Okay, so welcome back. All right. Just a quick recap before we move on to our lecture for today. All right. So as we all know, when it comes to repetition, okay, there are two main types of repetition or loop that we can create inside any program. So the first one would be a counter controlled loop, and another one would be a sentinel loop. So what are the difference between the two? So counter loop, okay, you can just remember as the word count, okay? So when we use a counter loop, all right, we use it when we know when to stop. Okay, for example, if I give you a problem, display the word hello 10 times. So you know that you know how many times you want to do the repetition. So if I say display the word hello 10 times, you want to repeat this around 10 times. So you know when to stop. So when it comes to sentinel loop is when we don't know when to stop. Okay, when we don't know when to stop. For example, display hello as long as the user wants. So meaning that we don't know when to stop. It will stop depending on the user. Okay, so when it comes to counter loop, all right, or sentinel loop, there are three types of structure which we can use. Okay, for any type of loop, there are three types of structure which we can use. We have a while loop, we have a do while loop, and we also have a for loop. Okay, we have covered while. So today we'll go into do while and also for. Okay, so for these three types of loop, I'm going to cover for this video, I'm going to cover do while and for counter loop. Okay, so our next video I'll cover sentinel loop. All right. Okay, now since we have covered on how to use a while loop inside a program, all right, let's take a look at the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. All right, they do the same thing whereby you can repeat things, okay, either using a while loop or a do while loop. It's up to you which one you want to use, but how you use it is a little bit different. So let's take a look at a while loop. If you take a look at a while loop, okay, the loop condition is evaluated at the beginning of loop. Take a look at the condition. Okay, so the condition is here. So this is your while and this is your loop condition. Okay, so meaning that this loop condition is positioned at the top. All right, whereas a do while loop, you will notice that the condition is at the bottom. All right, so since the condition is at the top, when you use a while loop, the condition will be evaluated first. Okay, so if this condition is true, then it will go inside. All right, if this is false, it will not go inside. Instead, it will go onto the next statement. All right, so this is why when it comes to a while loop, the loop can be executed 0 or more times, meaning that if the condition here is false, you don't need to go inside there, meaning that the execution can either be 0 or more times. Okay, whereas if you have a do while loop, you will notice that the loop condition is evaluated at the bottom. So meaning that since it is evaluated at the bottom, you will have a do statement here. So do meaning that there is no condition, so no matter what, okay, it will go inside at least once. All right, so it will go inside, so it will do the statement that is inside the curly braces, then it will evaluate the condition. If the condition is true, then it will go back and enter the statement that is inside. If it's false, then it will go outside. All right, so that's the difference between the two. A while loop, okay, it is evaluated at the top. Okay, so if it is true, it will go inside. If it's false, then it will not go inside. Whereas you have a do while loop, the condition is at the bottom. Okay, so no matter what, it will go inside at least once. So please remember that. Okay, so since it is at least once, it will go and execute the statement inside the curly braces. Okay, then it will evaluate. If it's true, it will go back up. All right, so that's the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. Okay, so now let's take a look at this question right here. It says display the word hi 10 times. So if you do a while loop, okay, you can solve this problem either using a while loop or a do while loop. Okay, so let's try and solve it using a while loop first. So when it comes to any kind of loop, we must have our initialize. After initialize, we need to have the condition. We need to evaluate. Lastly, before you go back, you need to have the update. If you have these three things, okay, for your loop will always be correct. All right, so let's try to solve this problem using a while loop. So whenever you do a loop, make sure that you come up with your control variable. This control variable allows you to count how many times you want to repeat. So for every loop, you must create a new counter variable. Okay, so let's try to solve this. Okay, so the first thing we need is we need to initialize our control variable. So you can name your counter variable or control variable as anything that you want. Okay, let's say I name it as maybe I name it as Kira. Okay, so I'll do Kira equals to, let's say, since we're not counting anything yet, I'll do 0. Kira equals to 0. Okay, so since we're using a while loop, okay, we're gonna write while. Okay, since we use this counter variable, inside the condition must also have your counter variable. Okay, so not counter control, sorry. Okay, so loop condition, you must state here when you want to stop. Since I know this will be repeated 10 times, so what should I write here? So it needs to be less than 10. So the number that this looping will accept is from 0 until 9. From 0 until 9, this will be repeated 10 times. So this is your evaluate, your condition. Okay, so we've done this and we've done this. Okay, so wherever that is inside your looping is the thing that we want to repeat. So what we want to repeat here? We want to repeat the word hi 10 times. So the 10 times will depend on this. Okay, so inside here we want to repeat hi. Okay, so since we want to repeat hi, that's the only thing we want to repeat here. Okay, then we need to write our update. Okay, so this is also important. So update allows us to count how many times we want to repeat. So from 0 until 9, how do we do that? We want to count it, move it one by one, from 0 to 1 to 2 until 9. So everything is incremented by 1. So all you need to do is just write Kira plus plus. So this is how you solve this problem using a while loop. All right, so to solve this problem, you can also use a do while loop. It does the same thing, except for the structure is a little bit different. Okay, so we can use the same name. Okay, maybe I write here Kira equals to 0. So instead of you writing while, you write do. Okay, so what do you want it to do? We want it to display the word hello. Okay, so everything that's inside the curly braces will be repeated. Okay, so see out hi. Okay, so of course this is the thing that we want to repeat. Okay, so what is the update? Since we have, okay, since Kira is 0, so when we display the word hi, okay, now it has gone to 1. Okay, so we write Kira plus plus. Okay, then we close up the curly braces. So this is your initialize. Okay, this is your update. Okay, this is your initialize, this is your update. Okay, and this is your condition. Okay, so we have that. We also have this, so we need to have a condition here, so we write while. Okay, our condition here is Kira must be less than 10. So please remember, when it comes to do while, at the end here you must have a semicolon. This one, do not put a semicolon here ever. Okay, here you need to have a semicolon. So that is the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. It does the same thing, if you notice that, all right, except for with a while loop, condition is at the top. With a do while loop, the condition is at the bottom. Okay, so that's the difference between these two. Okay, so let us take a look at this question right here. So if I give you this program, okay, the question says, if count is initialized as 6, what would be the output displayed on the screen? So if you notice here, okay, the question wants us to initialize the count as 6. Right now the count is initialized as 0, so let's try to change it. Count equals to 6. Okay, so when we do this program, if we want to check what is the output, we need to trace the program. Okay, so let's take a look at the first line. The first line that we see here, we have int number, sum equals to 0. So we have the variable number, and we also have the variable sum. Okay, and we also have the variable called count. Okay, so number has nothing, sum is equals to 0. Count, right now we don't want it 0, we want it to be initialized as 6, so we know that count is equals to 6. Okay, so after this line, we notice that we find a while loop. Okay, so count, is count less than 5? Right now the count is 6. Okay, if the count is 0, can we go inside? Yes, because 0 is less than 5. Okay, if 0 is less than 5, so if this is true, we can go inside. Okay, but right now count is not 0, count is 6. So is 6 less than 5? No. So since this is false, we cannot go inside. Okay, so since we can't go inside, meaning that a while loop, it doesn't mean that a while loop must go inside every single time. This is what I'm telling you here. Okay, with a while loop, the loop can be executed 0 or more times. It depends on the condition here. Okay, so if it's false, it will not enter this loop. All right, and it will go straight onto this line right here. So the output would be the sum is 0. Okay, so the output would be the sum is 0. Okay, so this is what we get if the count is initialized as 6. Okay, now let us transform this program by using a do while loop instead of a while loop. All right, so let us transform this program. All right, so if we want to change this program from using a while loop to a do while loop, okay, we must determine or identify which is the initialize, which is the condition, which is the update. Okay, if we take a look here, what is the control variable? Okay, you will notice that, take a look at the condition. Okay, we know that the control variable that is used to help count how many times it's repeated is called count. So this is our control variable. Okay, so we know that since this is a condition, this is our evaluate. So what is our initialize? This is our initialize. Count equals to 0. What is the first value? Okay, what is our update? Take a look here. Our update is count plus plus. So this is our update. Okay, so these three things will determine how many times this repetition will repeat. Okay, so how many times will this repeat? Okay, just from these three alone, we know how many times these statements will be repeated. Okay, so you start with 0, okay, then it will stop at 5. Okay, so does 5, is 5 included? No, because it's less than, so we know that it will be 4. Okay, so how do we get from 0 to 5? It is plus plus, so meaning that plus plus is plus 1, right? Plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, so it will be 1, 2, 3 until 4. Okay, how many times will this repeat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that this thing will be repeated 5 times. Okay, that is how you determine how many times your repetition will repeat. All right, so let's try to transform this program to a do-while loop. Okay, so to do that, all right, if you take a look at the first line, is it the same? Yes, it is the same. There's nothing to change there. So int a number, sum equals to 0. Okay, then int count equals to 0. Is that the same as well? Yes, that is also the same. So we just write int count equals to 0. Then while, do we need to change that? Yes, because we want to use a do while now. Okay, so write do. Okay, so the thing that is repeated should be written inside here. So if we take a look, what will be repeated? So in this case, this will be repeated. Okay, so we write inside here C out enter an integer. Okay, C in number. Okay, sum equals to sum plus number, so you can write sum. Okay, just to let you know, okay, you can also, to shorten things up, you can write sum plus equals to number. This is the same as this, except for it is a simpler version. Okay, same thing as count. Okay, with count, okay, you can write count equals to count plus 1. It means the same thing, except for this is a simpler version of this. Okay, so you can write sum plus equals to number. So this means sum equals to sum plus number. All right, so since we have written the thing that we want to repeat here, so before we close up our repetition, okay, we need an update. So our update is count plus plus, so we also write here count plus plus. Okay, so since it's a do while do, so we need to have a while condition here. So what is our condition? Count less than 5, so we write here count less than 5. Do not forget the semicolon. Okay, so since we have written everything down, we have another statement here, which is C out the sum is sum. Okay, so this is how we transform this program from a while loop to a do while loop. All right, so let's take a look at the next question. It says here, using the new program, if count is initialized as 6, what would be the output displayed on the screen? Okay, so let's try to change this. Okay, the question says if the count here, so instead of we write here as 0, we'll write this as 6. Okay, so with a while loop, if we write it as 6, we know that we cannot go inside, because if 6 less than 5, we cannot even execute this statement. Okay, but with a do while loop, okay, we know that it can be executed at least once. So if count is equals to 6, can we go inside? Yes. Okay, we'll meet enter an integer say in number. So let's say the user enters 30, so sum equals to sum plus number, so the sum will now be 30. Before this, the sum was 0. Okay, since we have gone inside and we have added this process, so sum equals to sum plus number, so sum will now be 30. Okay, so count plus plus, so from 6 it will now become 7. Okay, so then it will evaluate, is 7, which is your count, less than 5? True. Is that true or false? False. Okay, since this is false, we will not go up there. Okay, so it will move on to the next line. The sum is 30. Okay, you will notice that this is the difference between the two. If it's 6 here, okay, we cannot even go inside, so the sum here will be 0, because this statement is not executed. Whereas with a do while loop, okay, even though this is 6, this process will be executed at least once, because this is a do while loop. Okay, so in the end the sum is 30 because we are able to sum up one number. All right, so that's the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. Okay, so let us move on to this question right here. Okay, using a do while loop, write a program that will add up the salary of 4 workers. So whenever we come up or we come across any particular question, okay, read the question carefully. Okay, ask yourself, do you know how many times you need to loop? Okay, how many times you want to repeat? Okay, so if you read this question, write a program that will add up the salary of 4 workers. Do we know how many times? Yes, we want to take the salary of 4 workers. Okay, so what do we need to repeat? Okay, we need to repeat the process of adding up the salary. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to write our start. Okay, let's draw a flow chart so that you'll understand this better. Okay, so when we want to create any type of loop, okay, there are 3 things that we need. Okay, we need to have initialize. Okay, second thing, we need to evaluate, and third thing, we need to update. Okay, so all these things will relate to our control variable. So first of all, we need to come up with our control variable. Okay, so let's name this. Let's say I use count. Count equals to, so what value do you want to start with? Let's say I start with 0, because we're not counting anything yet. So let's write count equals to 0. Okay, so once we've done that, we've done our initialize. Second thing, we need to do evaluate. Okay, since we're doing a do while loop, we are evaluating it at the bottom. So before we do this, we need to do the thing that is inside of our curly braces first. Okay, so now since you know that with a do while loop you will have whatever here, okay, then you will have your condition. So we need to decide what we want to repeat first. Okay, so in this case, okay, after you've done your initialize, what do we want to repeat? We want to repeat getting the salary of 4 workers. Okay, so where do we get our salary? We get it from the user. Okay, so what is an input? Okay, so we will do read salary. Okay, read salary. So after we read the salary, then we want to add up that salary. Okay, this is only salary for 1 worker. If we have a lot of workers, okay, please remember the formula that I told you. Okay, when we want to accumulate or add up more than one thing, okay, we can write total salary equals to total salary plus, what do we want to add up here? We want to add up the salary. Okay, so this is a process. Okay, so we've received as input, we've calculated the total. So anything else we want to do? No. All right, so in the end, before we evaluate, okay, we need to have our update. Okay, before you go down here, we need to have our update. Okay, so our update, okay, will depend on the control variable count. So since we're counting from 0 to 4, okay, we write here count plus plus. Okay, so after that, okay, then we can move on to the condition. So with the condition, you will have a diamond here. So what is our condition? Okay, we know that this will stop when it will stop if it reaches 4. So it will be less than 4 because 0 until 3. 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 4 times. Okay, that's why it's less than 4. Okay, 4 is not included. So if this is true, if the count is in between 0 and 3, meaning it is less than 4, it will go up where? Go back to the read salary. Meaning that this thing will be repeated how many times? 4 times. Okay, this is if it's true. If it's false, Okay, if it's false, then we can just stop the loop and we can display our salary. So we can do display salary is, so total salary is, we will get it from the total cell. Okay, that is our output. In the end, that's the end. All right, so this is how we solve this program using a do while loop. So this will be our initialize, this is our evaluate, and this is our update. So this is how we solve this problem. This is how we design the flowchart for this particular problem. So let us write a program for this. Okay, so based on the flowchart that we have designed before, let's try and do our program now. Okay, so start off with the initialization. Okay, so with our initialization, we have count equals to 0. So we just write here count. So we just write here count equals to 0. Okay, we can immediately declare that as integer. Right, and then after that we can ask for the user for the salary. So as we all know, since we're doing a do while loop, okay, so the thing that we want to repeat, we'll place it inside our do. Okay, so we write here C out, enter salary. Okay, and then we'll ask for the salary. So we have a variable called salary, so we can just declare this. So I'll declare this as float since we're taking money. So with money, sometimes we have shillings or we have coins, right? And then the other thing that we need to repeat, okay, since we have asked for the user for the salary, we also need to calculate the total. We can't put the total outside, because then how can we add up the salary that is inside the loop? So when you take the input inside the loop, you must also calculate the total inside your loop as well. Okay, so total salary equals to total salary plus the salary. Alright, so last thing before we move on to our condition, we must have our update. Okay, so and then again, this is our initialize, this is our update, and lastly we need our condition or evaluate. Okay, so our condition here is it must be a less than 4 because we want to repeat this 4 times. Alright, so this is our evaluate. Okay, alright, so in the end, okay, lastly we just need to display this. So C out, we can say salary or total salary is RM. Okay, we can just write here, where do we get the total salary from? This formula that you've done. So this is our variable total sal, so we just write here total sal. Okay, and basically this is how you solve this problem using a do while loop. Okay, so this question asks you to find the output for this particular program. Okay, so given this program right here, let's try to trace the program. So we need to list out all the variables that are used. So in this case, we have count. Okay, another variable we have is funny. Okay, then we have serious. Then we also have limit. Okay, so count, in our first line of code, we have count equals to 0, funny equals to 1, serious equals to 0, and we have limit equals to 4. And we will also have our output. So this is what we're trying to get. All right, so you will notice that it goes into do. So when you have do, it must do the coding first. So funny plus plus, meaning that funny plus 1, so suddenly funny becomes 2. Okay, then serious equals to serious plus 2, so meaning that whatever that is inside serious, which is 0, will be plus with 2, so this will become 2. Okay, then count plus plus, so now count will now become 1. Since it increment by 1, okay, then you will have your condition. So count less than limit. So is count, which is 1, less than limit, which is 4, that is true. So if it's true, it will go back up. Okay, since it will go back up, all right, okay, you will notice that funny, okay, will be plus plus. So funny plus plus, so this becomes, from 2 it becomes 3. Okay, and then serious equal to serious plus 2, so from 2 it will become 4. Okay, then count plus plus, so this now becomes 2. All right, so then it go to while count less than limit. So you ask, is this count still less than limit? Yes, so it will go back up. So we move on to another iteration. Okay, so go back up. So funny will now become plus plus, so funny will become 4. Serious equals to serious plus 2. Serious now is incremented by 2, so this now becomes 6. Okay, then count plus plus, so from 2 it'll become 3. All right, then it go to the condition again. Is count, which is 3, less than 4? Yes, that is still true. So you go back up again. So we go to another iteration. So go back inside. So funny is incremented to 5. Okay, serious equals to serious plus 2. So this now becomes 8. Count plus plus, this now becomes 4. Okay, so it'll check for the condition again. Is count, which is 4, less than limit? That is false. So this will now stop. So in the end, what is our output? So see out funny, so which is 5. So we go 5 here, and then we have a space. The serious, what is inside serious, which is 8. Okay, and then we have another space, which is here. And then since there's no end L, okay, the output still will continue on the side. So what is count? 4. So the answer is 584. So your output is 584. All right, that is how you solve this problem. Okay, so let's try to write a program for this problem. It says here, using a do-while loop, write a program that will input 5 numbers and display the count of odd numbers. So before we do anything, we must analyze the problem and decide how many times this program wants to loop. From the question, we know that it wants to repeat 5 times because we want to receive the number from the user about 5 times. So we'll do the looping first. Okay, so with your loop, okay, in order to repeat things 5 times, please do the 3 things that we need, which would be the initialize, the evaluate, and also the update. So we'll do the initialize first. Okay, so what is the thing that what is the control variable that you want to create? So let's say I use count. Okay, so since we're not counting anything, I can just do count equals to 0. So I'll just declare this as integer. Okay, then after that, okay, since we are using a do while loop, okay, we'll just write here do. Okay, so whatever you want to repeat will be inside here. Okay, and then you will know that, okay, at the end of your loop, all right, before you go to your condition, you must have an update. All right, so inside this, okay, you must do an update, and over here, okay, you will have your while. So this is your evaluate. So whenever you do any programming, do your repetition first, then you fill in what you want to repeat. Okay, so initialize, we start with 0. Okay, so when do we stop? Okay, we know that we want to stop at 5, so it'll be less than 5 because we start with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so all of those will equals to 5. Okay, so the update before we go to the evaluate, okay, we know that to go from 0 to 5, we must increment it by 1. So we just need to write count plus plus. Okay, so this variable can be any name that you want. This is our control variable. Okay, so whatever you want to repeat, you put it inside here. Okay, anything you want to repeat. Okay, so you put it inside here. All right, so since we want to repeat the input, okay, so we write it here, enter a number. Okay, so this is what we want to repeat, so we must get the input, which is num. All right, so we can declare that as integer. Okay, so once we get our number, we must decide what we want to do with the number. Okay, since this question asks we want to count how many odd numbers, so we must decide what we want to do with this number. So we need to check whether it's an odd or an even number. If it's an odd number, we need to count it. All right, so since we're making decision, okay, we're checking. So when we're checking, we're making decision, we want to check. So if you want to check something, you use if. So you want to check if this number, if we divide it by 2 and we have a remainder, then it becomes an odd number. So to check for remainder, you must use a modulus. So if this number, when we divide it by 2 and we get a remainder, meaning that it must be not equal to 0. Okay, meaning that the remainder is not 0, so there's a value there. All right, so if we get a remainder, it will be an odd number. Okay, so this will be an odd number. All right, so how do we count? The same thing as we do this. So when we do our update plus, meaning that we are counting things. Okay, so you can create a variable. Maybe I create a variable called odd. Okay, since we're counting how many odd numbers that we have. Okay, so odd, maybe we can do odd equals to 0. Okay, because we're counting things, right? So since we don't have anything to count yet, we can initialize it as 0. So whenever this number, let's say I enter this as maybe 17. So 17, so when we divide it by 2, we have a remainder, right? So it will go inside here. So suddenly your odd will now be plus or incremented by 1. So from 0, it will suddenly become 1. Okay, so this condition helps us to find and check whether this number is an even number or an odd number. Okay, so all right, so whenever if we continue this, so the count suddenly becomes 1 since we have already received a number, it will check this. If this is true, it will go back up. Then it will check for another number. So if let's say you put in 20, since this is not an odd number, then it will skip this. If it's an even number, it will go inside here and be incremented by 1. Okay, so you know that this thing will be repeated and the value will be changed according to the input that the user placed inside here. All right, so in the end, okay, this is how we count our odd numbers. All right, so in the end, we can just display our odd numbers. So we can write here, all right, C out, okay, odd numbers found. Okay, so where do we get our odd number? We get it from the odd. Okay. Okay, as we all know, the question is not finished. We're still trying to find also the even number. Okay, if this have a remainder, meaning it's an odd number, but if it doesn't have a remainder, you can do else. Okay, and then, or if you want to do a condition, you can also do that. For example, a num modulus 2 equals to 0, then this will be an even number. Okay, if you want to skip this, you can also do that, because if it's not odd, then it is, of course, it will be even. So it's up to you which one you want to use, whether you want to have a condition or you want to skip the condition. So it's up to you. Okay, you can leave it or you can put it inside. All right, so this is an even number. All right, plus plus, same concept. Okay, so we'll just initialize this as 0. So in the end, we can just display it. So even numbers found. So where we get that is from the even variable that we've counted there. So basically, this is how we solve this question. Easy, right? Okay, so let us move on to the next type of looping structure. Okay, like I've said, when it comes to a counter loop, okay, we have 3 types of structure that we can use, which is a while loop, and then we have covered a do while loop, and lastly we will also go into a for loop. Okay, so let's go into how we can use a for loop for your repetition. Okay, Okay, so if you take a look here, when we create a while loop, of course, we would need to have the three things for every repetition. We would need firstly, we would need an initialize. Okay, so next thing is we need an evaluate, and lastly we need our update. So if I give you this example right here, display the word hi 10 times. Okay, if you take a look at this program, the first line here, in count equals to 0, this would be our initialize. Okay, then you will have your evaluate, so count less than 10, so we start with 0, and this repetition will end when it hits 10, or 0 until 9, so you will get 10. So this is our evaluate. So lastly, you will have your update here, count plus plus. So how do you get from 0 to 9? You will need to plus 1. Okay, so that is how you repeat hi 10 times. All right, so when it comes to a for loop, okay, it's the same thing. We also need these three things. We need the initialize, we need the evaluate, and we also need the update. But the difference is that with a while loop, all of these statements are separated at different locations. Okay, firstly, you have your initialize at the top, then you will find that you have a condition in the middle, lastly, you will have your update here. Okay, but with a for loop, if you notice that all those three statements is placed in one place, on one line, but it is separated by a semicolon. Okay, so you will have your initialize, okay, then you will have your condition, and lastly you will have your update. All right, so let's take a look at how we can actually convert this, okay, from a while loop using a for loop. Okay, we're doing the same thing. We want to display the word hi 10 times. Okay, so first of all, okay, how do we do that? Well, of course, we need our initialize first. So our control variable here named is count. Okay, so whenever you want to write a for loop, you write the word for. Okay, and then initialize. Okay, the first part here you need to initialize. So our initialize is count equals to 0, and it is separated by a semicolon. Okay, either you want to write it like this, or you can also actually include the data type directly in here. You can also write for int count equals to 0. You can also do that. All right, so next thing, after we have our initialize, okay, we need to have our update. So from 0, how do we get to the end? Okay, we know that we want to stop when it reaches 10, so it will be count less than 10. Again, this is separated by a semicolon. Okay, lastly, we need an update. How do you get from 0 to 10? We want it to increment it by 1. That's why we write here count plus plus. Okay, then you just open up your curly braces. So these inside here are the things that you want to repeat. So what do you want to repeat? I want to repeat the word hi. So how will this hi be repeated? It will be repeated 10 times according to these three statements that you've placed. Okay, so if you ask me which control structure, or which control structure that I would prefer to use, I would definitely say that a for loop is the best type of loop for you to use as a counter loop. Okay, why? Because all these statements are placed inside one line, so you are not forgetting any of the statement. Okay, sometimes if you place it in different lines, you tend to forget and misplace, or I don't know, forget to put one of the statements here. Okay, but with a for loop, you must have all of these three statements inside one line to make your looping work. Okay, so you, of course, you would need your initialize, you would need your evaluate, and lastly you would need your update. Okay, so that's the difference between a while loop and a for loop. It does the same thing, except for this is done all in one line. Okay, all right. Okay, so now let's take a look at this question right here. It asks us to find the output for this program. Okay, like I said, whenever you want to find an output for any particular program, you need to trace this program. Okay, so before we trace this particular program, there is this question I want to ask. If I give you just this line right here, this line of code, can you determine how many times this will repeat? Okay, so just from these three things, we have initialize, we have our evaluate, and also we have our update. Actually, just from these three things, we are able to know how many times this repetition will be repeated. Okay, so let's try and figure that out. Okay, so as we all know, k will start with 0. Okay, so this is our start value, 0. When will it stop? It will stop when it reaches 10, but 10 is not included, meaning that it will only be up to 9. Okay, from 0 until 9. So how do you get from 0 until 9? We need to take a look at the update. Okay, this is not plus plus, meaning that plus plus means it is plus 1. So if we take a look here, we can also update it with any number that we want. In this case, this update with plus 3. So plus 3, okay, and then we'll plus 3 and so on. Okay, so we start with 0. So 0 plus 3 is 3. Okay, 3 plus 3 is 6. So, and then we have plus 3, we have a 9. Okay, another plus 3, we will have 12. So is this 12 included? No, because we only include from 0 until 9. So how many times will this be repeated? 0, okay, which includes this. So 1, okay, 3, 2, 6, 3, 9, 4. So we know that this thing is actually repeated 4 times, okay, because it increments 3, 3, 3. Okay, so we know that this will be repeated 4 times. So what is the output? So take a look at the first line here. So we have our variable called sum. So sum stores 5. Okay, then you will have your this 3 line here. Okay, so you will have your k. K again start with 0. Okay, so you when you come across to this thing, how you read it is you read this one first. Okay, so initialize is only read once because it starts with this. Okay, then you will take a look at your evaluate. Lastly, take a look at your update. Okay, so once you've taken a look at this, then you move on to this one. So is 0 less than 10? Yes, so then we can go inside. All right, so if k equals to 3 or k equals to 9, so you will check your k. Is k equals to 3 or 9? No, so it will not go here. Okay, so it will go, so there's no more statement, it will go back up. This is when you read your update. Okay, so k equals to k plus 3. So from 0, 0 plus 3, you'll become 3. So after you've done that, then you will read back your evaluate. Okay, so you check before you go back in here. So is 3 less than 10? Yes, so then it will go inside here. Okay, then you will check, is k equals to 3 or 9? Yes, so you notice that there's 3 here. So sum equals to sum plus k. So sum is 5, 5 plus k is 3, so this now becomes 8. Okay, so go back up. All right, so k equals to k plus 3, this be 6. Okay, then it will go back here. Is 6 less than 10? Okay, is k less than 10? 6 less than 10? Yes, so we'll go back inside. So is k equals to 3 or 9? No, so it will skip this, go back up. So k equals to k plus 3, so this becomes 9. All right, so you go back here. Is 9 less than 10? Yes, so it will go inside here. Then it will check, is k equals to 3 or 9? Yes. Okay, so you notice that there's 9 here, so sum equals to sum plus k. So sum is 8. 8 plus 9 is, okay, so 8 plus 9, so you will have 17. Okay, so then, okay, it will check this. Once you have updated this, it will go back, k equals to k plus 3, so this now becomes 12. All right, so then it go back here and it will check the condition. Is 12 less than 10? No, so that's when you stop, because 12 is not included. This is false. All right, so you will notice that how many times has this been repeated? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, based on the k, because k is our control variable, a counter variable. Okay, control variable, counter variable. Okay, so then you will have, okay, see out sum. Once you've done this, so that's the end of the loop. So see out sum, so sum will be 17, so the output will be 17. Okay, so this is how you solve this problem, by tracing each variable. Right. Alright, so the question asks us, using a for loop, write a program that accepts a series of genders from a class of 10 students and count the number of female and male students in the class. Alright, so when we read this question, you can kind of guess that this question wants us to repeat the program around 10 times. Why? Because it asks for a class of 10 students. Okay, so whenever we start anything, always do your loop first. Figure out how many times you want to repeat this program. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use a for loop. So to do a for loop, just write for, okay, and then you have your bracket, and then inside here you will have 3 statements. Okay, so before you do you figure out what should be inside here, decide or figure out what should be inside your bracket first. Okay, so you will need your initialize. So of course, we must have a counter variable, a control variable, I mean. So you write here count. So I'll name this as count. Okay, so what value you want to start with? Let's say I start with 0. Okay, now if I start with 0, if I want to repeat this 10 times, when can I stop? Okay, so I can write here count. I will stop this around 10. Less than 10, because I don't want to include 10 because I use 0 here. So 0 until 9, it will count up to 10. All right, and then you will have count plus plus. Okay, because from 0 to 10, I want to increment this by 1. Okay, so it can accept 0, 1, 2 until 9. All right, so that is how we do this, the repetition for this program, because we want to repeat this 10 times. So repeat 10 times. Okay, now the thing that is inside here is what we want to repeat. So what will be repeated? So anything you want to repeat, you place it inside your curly braces. Okay, so the thing that we want to repeat here is the input. Okay, enter gender of student 1, and then you will ask for the gender. Okay, so you write here C out, enter gender of student. Now, if you notice here, it wants to display 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All of this will actually be displayed automatically as you loop the program. So where can we get those numbers? Okay, we can actually get it from this increment that you've done here. Okay, so but in the first place, you've done count equals to 0, right? Okay, so instead of we started with 0, we can actually start it with 1. Okay, since we start with 1, 10 is included, so you write less than equals to 10. Okay, so when you do C out, enter gender of student. Okay, so if I write here count, so the first number that will be displayed here is 1. So when it loops back, it will display 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 until 10. Okay, and 11 is not counted. All right, so that's how you display that there. Okay, then you continue because there's more things you want to place here. So you have F or M. So you have F or M. Okay, and then you will ask for the user's gender. Okay, so what do I declare this gender as? I'll declare this as cha. Okay, cha gender. Okay, and then you will notice that the count, we haven't declared this. You can either declare it inside here, or you can declare it on top. It's up to you where you want to declare that. Okay, and then after that, this is what we want to repeat. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, since we have accepted the gender, we want to check the gender, because the question says depending on what the user enters, if it's either F or M, we want to calculate or count how many female students and how many male students there are inside the class. Okay, so to count that, it all depends on the gender. We need to check the gender. So if we are checking things, what do we use? We use an if. Okay, if this gender that the user enters is M, if the user enters M, this means that this is a male. All right, so what do you want to do if the user enters M? If the user enters M, we want to count how many M there are. So let us come up with one variable. Let's say count M. Okay, we can do count M plus plus. Of course, we can't leave it at that because we must have an initial value. Okay, so we can write here count M equals to 0. This is important. Okay, we must have an initial value because otherwise this doesn't exist. Okay, if there's no value here, how can you add a number when there's no any value here? That's why we must start with a value. If it starts with 0, if it meets with M, then suddenly the M will become, count M will become 1, 2, 3, 4, example, all right, etc. So for female, okay, if the users enter, so you have if, then if the user enters a female or F, okay, we will also count this, all right. Sorry. Okay, we'll also count this. So inside here, I will write count F plus plus. So this is the same thing, comma, count F equals to 0. Okay, so anything that you want to do inside here, I don't think so because we're only trying to count the number of female and also male. So in the end, we can just display C out, okay, the number of female students are. So this comes from count F, okay, and L, and then you will also have the number of male students are, okay, this comes from count M. All right, so basically this is how we solve this problem. Okay, first of all, whenever you write a program, decide how many times you want to repeat. Do that first, and then you can figure out how you can actually solve the problem using this loop. Okay, so what is inside the for is what will be repeated. All right, so that's how you solve this problem. Okay, now let's take a look at this last question that we have here. So the question says, using a for loop, write a program to find the largest and the smallest integer from a sequence of integers given by the user. So the number of integers that will be repeated here will be determined by the user. So if you take a look at this program, do you know how many times you want to repeat? Based on that example, we know that the number needs to be received by the user around 6 times. So how do we determine this? It depends on the input that the user gives. Enter how many numbers you want to process. So if the users enter 6, we need to get 6 numbers from the user. If the user enters 10, we need to get 10 numbers from the user. If the user enters 15, we need to get 15 numbers from the user. So the repetition of the numbers will depend on what the user gives. Okay, again, this is a counter loop because we know when to stop. We know when to stop when the user enters that particular number. If the user enters 6, it will stop at 6. If the user enters 10, it will stop at 10. Okay, so this is a counter loop. All right, so with a counter loop, you can use while, you can use do while, you can use for. So in this case, the question asks you to use a for loop. Okay, so let's try to do that. So the first things first, before we do our loop, we need to get the input from the user. We need to ask the user how many numbers that the user wants to process. So let's ask the user, C out, enter how many numbers you want to process. Okay, so C in amount. Let's see the users enter 6 here. Okay, if the users enter 6, meaning that we want to repeat this 6 times. If the users enters 10, it will be repeated 10 times. If the users enters 15, okay, the numbers will be repeated around 15 times. So it depends on what the user enters. Okay, so we need to declare this int amount. Okay, so can we do the for loop now? Yes. Okay, so because we know when to stop, so we write here for. All right, so you will have your curly braces, so whatever that is repeated will be inside here. So the for, the condition, the 3 condition will determine how how many times you want to repeat. Okay, so you can write here, come up with one control variable. So let's have let's say int count, okay, equals to 0. Okay, maybe we can start with 0. So how many times you want to repeat? It will repeat depending on the amount that the user enters. If the user enters 6, okay, this will be repeated around 6 times. Okay, so you can enter here amount. Okay, then how do you get from 0 until this amount? Okay, we can plus 1. So count plus plus. Okay, so this thing will be repeated based on the user's input. Okay, it will depend on the amount that the user gives. Okay, so now what do we put inside here? The thing that we put inside is what we want to repeat. Okay, so in this case, what do we want to repeat? We want to repeat the numbers. So C out, okay, enter number. Okay, so C in num. All right, so let's declare that. All right, so is that all we want to do? No. Okay, according to what the user enters, the numbers that the user enters, okay, we need to decide which one is the largest number, which one is the smallest number. Okay, so in the end, actually what we want to put here, okay, C out, all right, the largest number is largest. Okay, C out, the smallest number is smallest. Okay, so basically we need to decide what is the largest and what is the smallest. So how do we do that? Okay, so the numbers, okay, let's say the user enters a series of numbers. Based on those series of numbers, we need to determine which one is the largest one and which one is the smallest one. Okay, so how do we do that? Now think about your repetition in the first place. Okay, so if we trace this program, okay, so let's say here, enter how many numbers you want to process. Okay, let's say this thing, the users enters 6. Okay, now the users want to repeat this 6 times. All right, so it will be repeated 6 times. The count right now, so let me try and basically do some what's it called, tracing for you. So we have, first of all, we have amount. Okay, amount equals to 6. Okay, because right now the users enters 6. Okay, and then when you go inside here, okay, the first thing you found is count equals to 0. So you know that count right now is equals to 0. Okay, is 0 less than amount, which is 6? Yes, of course the user wants to repeat this 6 times, right? So it will go inside. So enter number. So the user will enter the number and it will be stored here. Let's say the user enter here 45. Okay, so right now the number that you have on your hand right now is 45. So what are you going to do with that number? Okay, logically, if the first number that we receive, basically for every first number that we receive, that number will actually be the largest number and it is the smallest number. Why? Okay, why is right now when we receive that first number, why is this first number is the smallest and the largest? Why? Because basically the most logical reason is because that's the only number that you have received right now. Okay, since this is your first number, of course that number is the largest and that number is the smallest because there's no other number. You get what I mean? Okay, so right now, okay, you know that if, so since I'm actually doing some kind of decision here, if it is the first number, I will know that that number will always be the largest and the smallest number in the first place. Okay, so we can actually set a condition here. Okay, if we receive the first number, okay, it is the smallest and largest number. So since we are doing some kind of decision, we need an if. So how do we know this is the first number that we have received? It is because when the count is 0, it is the first iteration, the first loop. Okay, so if we do if count is equals to 0, we know that, okay, if count is equals to 0, this is the first number that we are receiving. Okay, so we can set the smallest equals to num, and we can set the largest equals to num. So if we do this, okay, right now, okay, before I do that, all right, so let's say the user enters 45, so the num right now is 45, right? So you check, is count equals to 0? Yes, because this is the first number, all right? So smallest equals to num. Smallest, okay, you want to save 45 here, and the largest equals to num, you want to save 45 here as well. So right now you have actually figured out what is the largest and the smallest number right now. Okay, so let us declare that largest and smallest. Okay, so if you do this, okay, and then we've done this, right, and then it will go back up. So when we go back up, the count will be updated to, from 0, it will be updated to 1. Okay, right now the count is 1. So once you've done that, you will check, is 1 less than amount? Is 1 less than 6? Yes. Then it will go inside. So then it will ask for the number. So it will ask for the second number. Let's say the users entered 23. Okay, so num has now become 23. Okay, so num has become 23. So it will go to this statement. If count equals to 0. Right now, is count equals to 0? No. Okay, because count has definitely increased. So we will no longer look at this, because this only applies only to the first number, because we want to set that. All right. So since we have set that, okay, we can actually check. Now we can check if the current number is smallest or largest. Okay, so meaning that we will have another if. Okay, so what is inside here? Okay, because we already know what is the largest and the smallest. Right now the largest is 45, the smallest is 45, so the current number is 23. Is that the largest or the smallest? Logically this is the smallest, right? Why? Because you can actually put here if the num, which is 23, if it is less than the smallest. If it's less than the smallest right now, which is 45, right? Okay, you can say that the smallest now can be the new number. Okay, so let's say num is 23. Is num less than, which is 23, less than 45? Yes. Okay, so it will go inside here. So smallest equals to num. So this will now be changed to 23. Understand? All right, so we can actually do that for the largest as well. Okay, so please do a new if, because the smallest and the largest, it is two separate things. Okay, so you do a new if. Okay, so if num is more than largest, okay, because right now largest is what? 45. Okay, so you will check, is 23 more than 45? Okay, no, so it will not go inside. All right, but the formula here is still the same, largest equals to num. All right, so let us move on. All right, so let's say we go back up again, and then count plus plus, so this now becomes 2. Okay, so is 2 less than amount, which is 6? Yes, so it will go inside. So now from 23 it has been updated to 34. All right, so if the user enters 34, we won't look at this anymore, all right, because it is not applicable, because right now count is 2. So then we'll check here. So is if, okay, if num less than smallest, right now num is 34, is it smaller than 23? No, it will skip that. Then it will check, is num right now, which is 34, more than largest, which is 45? No, it will skip that as well. Okay, then we'll go back up, so count plus plus, it now becomes 3. Okay, is 3 less than 6? Yes, it will go inside. So now will now be updated to 65. Okay, so it will skip this and move on to this. Okay, if num less than smallest, is 65 less than smallest, which is 23? No, so it will skip this. Is num more than largest? Is 65 more than 45? Yes, so it will go inside. Right now the largest will now be updated equals to num, so it will now be 65. Okay, so you will notice that right now the largest is 65, the smallest is 23. Okay, and then it will go back up again, count plus plus, it will now become 4. Okay, so is 4 less than 6? Yes, so it will go inside, it will get the next number, which is 55. Okay, so again this will be skipped because it's only for the first number. Then we'll go to here. Okay, is 55 less than 23? No. Okay, is 55 more than 65? No, so it will go back up. Then count plus plus will now become 5. Okay, is 5 less than 6? Yes, because we're still not finished. Enter a new number, so we enter this as 23. Okay, so again this will not be applicable. Okay, then it will check, is 23 less than 65? No. Okay, no, is 23 less than 23? No, because it's the same number, so it will skip that. Okay, is 23 more than 65? No as well, so it will skip that. Okay, it will go back up, count plus plus will now become 6. Okay, so is 6 less than 6? No, so now the looping will stop. Okay, so you will notice that we have included, or the user have input 6 numbers because the repetition depends on this. Okay, so in the end when we display this, the largest number is largest. What is our largest? Our largest will be 65 and our smallest will be 23. That is how we actually solve this problem. Okay, so whenever you come across this problem, okay, think about what you can do with each number that you have received from the user. All right, and that is how you will find the smallest and the largest of all numbers inside a loop. Okay.